The moment I uncovered my wife's secret with her supervisor, my world shattered, and I knew I had to act. I'm a man of 32 and my spouse is 20. We had been together for 7 years. Initially, our connection felt perfect. She was my soulmate, and I felt the same for her. We shared many common passions, from athletics and media to community matters. More on that soon, and even travel spots. For several years, we were genuinely content. However, circumstances began to shift as my wife grew more distant, appearing somewhat colder. Let me provide some context. We'd been a couple for 7 years. For the first 5, as I mentioned, we were delighted. I believed I was her entire world, and she was mine. We socialized with companions, and I recall her constant smiles directed at me whenever we conversed with her friends. She would care for me during illness, just as I did for her. She always stood by my side, a steadfast pillar of support, my closest friend, my one and only. We engaged in numerous shared activities, such as hiking, camping, visiting nature resorts, and attending football matches, all stemming from our mutual interests. Our passion for each other was undeniable. I never wished for her to change. When we first met, she was stunning, dark, curly hair, an enchanting smile, and a truly kind spirit. She consistently conveyed similar sentiments about me, making me feel cherished. Never did I experience feelings of inadequacy or self-doubt in her presence. More on that later. As I noted, for over 5 years, everything was wonderful, but things started to change when her new department head began working. I'll refer to him as Marges, age 30. At first, she would return home and speak about Marges, describing him as humorous and someone who uplifted spirits. Naturally, I was slightly taken aback initially because she typically came home asking about my day and sharing hers. Yet, she immediately began talking about Marges. However, at that moment, I dismissed it, thinking it was just someone new at her workplace. She had seen the same faces for years. So Marges' arrival felt like a fresh change. Weeks went by and my wife appeared increasingly withdrawn and secretive. She started working late shifts, which didn't concern me as she had done so often before. However, we were scheduled to go to a mutual friend's house for drinks. He was in a difficult situation, having been diagnosed with a severe illness. My wife, as I mentioned, was usually incredibly reliable, empathetic, and supportive. So when we learned about our friend Daniel, also 32, we didn't hesitate to go over and offer our support. The evening eventually concluded, and my wife was running late from her night shift. I attempted to reach her several times but received no reply. I sent texts. Again, no response. After waiting, I decided to visit Daniel by myself. Daniel and I discussed how he was adjusting and coping. During our conversation, I felt deeply for Daniel, such a kind individual to face such a cruel fate. Afterwards, I arrived home, furious. My wife still wasn't there and there were no missed calls or messages. Frankly, I couldn't believe it. I started to worry if she had been in an accident, so I contacted her coworker, Jane, 28. I got along well with Jane and inquired if Kelly, my wife, was out with her. Jane confirmed she was, but Jane had gone home, leaving only Kelly and Marges. I was incensed, truly enraged. We had known Daniel for years, and she would bypass meeting our friend for a man she had only just met. I kept telling myself there had to be an explanation for this. I waited until she returned home. Eventually, she arrived and found me in the living room, observing her. "What's wrong? Is everything all right?" I stared at her in disbelief and simply said, "Daniel." She appeared mortified. "I'm sorry, I completely forgot. I was out with work colleagues and lost track of the time." She seemed genuine. She and Daniel were close friends, so perhaps she truly had forgotten. I did pose a query. "Who were you out with?" She responded, "The usual group, Jane, Sophie, 30, and others." I countered, "Not Marges?" "Oh yes, he was present." I pressed further, recalling Jane's words, "Did everyone stay until the end?" She affirmed, "Yes, it was a pleasant evening." The following day, I felt anger. I kept silent towards my wife, but she had never lied to me before. She had never disappointed anyone previously. I couldn't comprehend that she would abandon our ailing friend for a man she had just encountered. Over the next few days, my wife became even more distant. She would arrive home later and offer no affection. I still attributed this to her workload, perhaps, but when she did get home, she was constantly on her phone, so I asked her, "Who are you always messaging?" "Just a friend from work," she replied. I asked, "Is it Marge's?" "No," she said, "but what's the issue if it is?" I had never witnessed my wife become so defensive, but I intended to be frank. I responded, "Because you never stop talking about him. He's been working with you for less than a month, and you seem to idolize him. Your face lights up when you speak of him, so much so that you forgot about Daniel." I could tell I had struck a nerve. She retorted, "No, I don't idolize Marge's. He's kind, but just a friend, and I've already apologized to Daniel." This wasn't sufficient. I waited until she was asleep and checked her phone. To my astonishment, it was filled with sexually explicit messages between them. I captured images of the conversation for future reference. A week passed and the pattern persisted. The late nights, the absence of affection. I confided in a trusted friend about my growing concerns, and he suggested perhaps I was simply being overly paranoid. He advised me to try something new, like preparing a surprise dinner for her. I liked that idea, so I texted my wife, asking if she was busy after work. She replied, "No, I'm free. I'm free." It seemed like a pleasant text exchange, so I prepared her dinner, acquired a fine bottle of wine, and bought flowers. She came home and looked sadly at me. She expressed deep regret, explaining that a coworker was organizing a surprise birthday party for a colleague, and that particular night was the only one they had. I shook my head, consumed by frustration and anger. She literally departed right after I drove off. This was it. After months of suspicion, I required conclusive proof. I know you must be reading this thinking, "My friend, can you not see the obvious signs?" I could, but I was hoping that I was mistaken, hoping it was merely a bad dream. The truth is, I was afraid to discover the reality, but I had to. I needed irrefutable evidence. So I wasn't proud of my actions, but I placed a tracking device in her vehicle. I pretended to be working late so she wouldn't see me when she returned home. She did eventually arrive. I observed from a distance as she drove off again in her car. I followed her as she ventured further outside of town. She ultimately pulled into a secluded parking area in a remote corner. She waited until another vehicle parked beside hers. It was him, Marge's. She exited her car and entered his. It was quite clear what they were doing. I recorded her getting into his car to use as evidence against her. For the next few days, she behaved as if everything was perfectly normal. I realized she didn't know that I knew, but she was acting typically, even smiling at me and holding my hand at breakfast. She left for work. I had a day off and decided to discreetly look through her laptop for anything suspicious. There was nothing. But as I searched through her drawers, I know, not my proudest moment, I discovered an iPad beneath her bottom drawer. It wasn't mine, so I presumed my wife had purchased it. Fortunately for me, it didn't require a password. I'm unsure if she forgot to secure it, but I got lucky. I gained access and began looking. Now, this is where the emotional impact truly struck. I examined the iPad and checked for text conversations, but found nothing. However, what I was about to witness, I will never, ever forget. There was a folder containing images of my wife, nude, posing sexually for him. There were so many, but there was more. There were videos. I know I shouldn't have viewed them, but I did. The videos were explicit. Marge's was intimately involved with my wife, and my wife was clearly enjoying it. But that wasn't all. My wife was also seen with another woman and another man, with Marge's present. Yet the other man was someone who genuinely sickened me. He was a bigot. He bore repulsive tattoos associated with certain vile groups. As I said, a truly despicable human being. It appeared that Marge's endorsed his views, which felt fitting. I couldn't believe it. My wife with a man who held bigoted opinions. This was a woman who detested any form of prejudice, as did I. So why would she do this? What did she see in him? It was seeing her being fully complicit that truly affected me. Throughout our marriage, we frequently discussed fantasies but never acted on them. For me, as a man, it involved threesomes and so forth. But my wife stated she would never do it, never be with another woman, or engage in anything that made her uneasy. I accepted that without a second thought. It didn't trouble me that she didn't want to. I loved her. So to see her doing things she never did with me hurt. It hurt really badly. I watched all the videos. I know, I'm foolish. I copied the videos and pictures to my laptop as proof of infidelity because that's all that mattered. I wanted her gone. I just didn't understand why she did it. I didn't understand why she denied me the fantasy route, if you will. What made him so special? Why was she attracted to a man I believe she despised because of what he represented? Anyway, I confided in Daniel about everything. He is a truly great man and a loyal friend. He couldn't believe I was speaking about my wife. He was disgusted with her, but had also noticed her changes. I informed him that I intended to divorce her. He understood. He assured me I had sufficient grounds to support my case. He told me that confronting her and him was pointless because her mind was already made up. He said that I needed a fresh start and to find someone who was truly themselves, not an illusion of the woman I married. Like me, Daniel detests vile racists and shook his head in dismay that my wife had done this. Daniel had known my wife much longer than I had. After speaking with Daniel, I felt a sense of control. For months, I had felt that she was in charge. I was afraid to discover the truth. I hadn't confronted her more firmly when I was suspicious because I feared the outcome. At the time, I didn't know if I wanted to leave her or try to make it work. But after seeing the videos, pictures, and texts, I damn well knew what I had to do. I went to the lawyers to initiate divorce proceedings. I had endured enough. My wife was still acting normally, still constantly on her phone, still going out late, I presume with him. I didn't care. I had to wait 3 weeks for the papers to arrive. Once I received them, I decided to move out. Luckily, we were renting, and our lease was expiring in 3 months. I was prepared to pay until then. Anyway, I wanted to move out, so the day arrived. She went to work. I fabricated a story about having to go in later to cover for being short-staffed. She shrugged and said, "Okay," with no goodbye hug or kiss. Still, that hadn't occurred for months, so I was accustomed to it. She left. I packed my essentials and placed the divorce papers on the kitchen table, along with my wedding ring. That was it. I stayed with my friend from university, Adam, who resided in another city. I was grateful, but even more grateful that it was far from her, from our city, from our shared social circle. I wanted nothing to do with any of it. I informed my parents about what had happened, and they were shocked, but fully understood. I obviously didn't tell them every minute detail. There was no need. And all I could contemplate at that moment was that I was free. My wife, I assumed, would agree, as it was clear that Marge's was the one she desired. I hoped for a swift divorce. I truly did. Later that night, my phone was inundated with calls and messages. It was my wife. I was surprised because I honestly believed this was what she wanted as well. But it seemed I couldn't have been more wrong. I didn't speak to my wife. I had no interest in it. I read her messages, and all of them contained phrases like, "I'm sorry," "I love you," "Please, can we talk?" and so forth. This continued for hours. I blocked her number and deleted all my social media accounts. I discussed my wife signing the divorce papers with my lawyer, but she hadn't signed. She did contact me via email. I wanted to maintain some means of communication because I still desired the divorce. She sent me another email, repeatedly expressing her sorrow and stating that we needed to converse. I replied, "No, all I want is the divorce." She responded that she didn't want one, that I was the only man she loved, and that Marge's meant nothing. It's ironic because I never told her why I left, but she clearly understood. Her guilty conscience and witnessing her plead for forgiveness were actually satisfying. I spoke to Adam, and he said I could stay as long as I wished. I am thankful for him, but he did mention that I would eventually have to meet her. He stated that I left without obtaining answers, and no matter how hard you try, you will eventually need to hear them. Internally, I disagreed with Adam. Why should I speak to her? She showed little regard for my emotions for months. She didn't care about me. She cared about her ailing friend Daniel. But she didn't care about me. So why would I speak to her? I know that deep down I'm being stubborn, but I'm also angry that my wife is attempting to reconcile. I honestly, truly thought she would have signed and moved on with him. This has left me confused, and even more perplexing now is that my wife wants to meet. I have an excellent therapist. I discussed the affair, the pictures, the videos, everything. I mentioned that my wife wants to meet before she signs. My therapist was direct. She said that when I left without explaining why, deep down, I wanted her to plead and to worry. I kept telling myself she wouldn't care, but deep down, I wanted her to care. I wanted her to experience the same pain she inflicted upon me. However, meeting her would diminish some of my control. She was correct. She added, if you decide to meet in person, you must ask the difficult questions, even if you don't like the answers, because you do have questions, and you are not moving on at all. You are running away because you are scared, and the last 7 years were a fabrication. As I said, blunt, that was 2 days ago. My wife genuinely wants to meet and implies that she won't sign without meeting first. I discussed it with my parents and close companions. My father said that I could force the issue of her signing, but that could take months. However, if she's willing, no guarantee, to sign after we talk, then it's worth it. Adam concurred. I decided to meet my wife, although to say I'm nervous is an understatement. How should I approach this? What should I ask her? Should I be open or guarded? Any help and advice would be greatly appreciated. Ask for some advice. You know you're going to get it. Thriller Gorilla states, well, I'm a big proponent of face-to-face discussions. With that in mind, tell her unequivocally that the condition for meeting her is signing the documents. If she refuses, then don't meet and ghost her, taking the prolonged path to divorce without ever seeing her again. If she agrees, then meet her, but allow her the opportunity to speak. Keep your inquiries and statements to a minimum, and manage your emotions to the point where you display zero feeling, positive or negative. If you become emotional, excuse yourself, compose yourself, and resume your objective. Your primary goal is to obtain her signature on the papers. Remember, you already possess all the answers you require. The meeting is for her, not for you. She seeks forgiveness, absolution, and a way to depart with less shame and guilt. She is looking to avoid being held accountable. Yes, use that insight as leverage for her signature. Now, there's still a possibility she won't sign. If she appears hesitant to sign, offer to work on the relationship after the divorce. Make her believe she still has a chance with you. Yes, it's a falsehood, but to hell with her. You want that signature, so lie to secure it if necessary. After you have her signature, ensure you reveal the affair at her workplace. Contact HR directly. Listen, brother, she is no longer an ally, wife, friend, or soulmate. She is an adversary in a legal matter. Nothing more, nothing less. Update. I apologize that my update took longer than I desired, as I had intended to post the very next day. Unfortunately, circumstances intervene. But before I proceed, I want to extend my gratitude to everyone who provided feedback. I read every single comment and took all advice to heart. I was frankly overwhelmed. I truly appreciate it. I also wish to clarify a few points regarding my previous post. The story began just over a year ago. The last post served as a catch-up to the present time. I should have explained this earlier, so now this update brings us to the present day, as the story is now complete, but I'll section each part with an update heading. Update. I don't know where to begin. Much has transpired since my initial post. Firstly, I returned to where I previously lived. Residing with Adam was pleasant, but I eventually needed to go back. My soon-to-be ex-wife still occupies our house, so I rented an apartment just outside of town. I informed my wife that I was returning, and she seemed pleased. However, I explicitly told her, under no uncertain terms, that I would not be living with her. She understood, although she attempted the typical, "we can sleep in separate rooms" line. No, I did not want that. I also stated that I would not disclose my address, obviously, even though she tried to find out. She still wanted to meet me, as did I. We arranged a specific time and location. The chosen spot was a neutral venue, so to speak. It was near the beach, where there were people but not so many that a public scene might occur, which I obviously wished to avoid. I wanted to meet outdoors, just her and me. I know some of you in the comments suggested bringing a friend, but I felt it wasn't necessary, though I still appreciate the advice. I do, however, agree that I would definitely be recording the conversation, which I did. Before the meeting, I emailed my soon-to-be ex-wife and established some ground rules. If she failed to adhere to them, there would be no chance of reconciliation. The rules were straightforward. 1. Answer every question I have honestly. 2. No evasive answers like, I saw it, it just happened, where are you? Or I'm not sure, etc. I want detailed responses. 3, if she storms off without answering every question, it's over. No reconciliation. 4, answer even if you believe the answer will cause me pain. 5, don't be late. If you are, no reconciliation. So we arrived at the location on time. Now it was about waiting. I returned home to my apartment the next day. I caught up with other friends. They treated me somewhat like Daniel, though I understood why. I received hugs and support, which I appreciated, but it seemed inevitable that news of our breakup had spread, although I questioned how they knew. I had only told a handful of people, but my wife inevitably informed her family and friends, and of course the domino effect would ensue. However, they obviously didn't know the full details. They didn't know about the messages, pictures, and videos. Not even my wife knew that I possessed them. She was under the impression I left because she was spending too much time with Marges. She didn't know about what I had. All she thought was, too much time with Marges, husband got upset, she broke it off. I told my therapist about the meeting. She said that I should ask certain questions to gain better insight into what had occurred. I'll elaborate on that later. It's the day of the meeting. I had felt a certain unease earlier, but now, heavens, I was absolutely shattered. Not because I wanted her back, but at the prospect of seeing her and then seeing her meant picturing him in my mind, and then I would lose focus and control. Update. I drove to the beach early, truly early. I absorbed the surroundings, and in reflection, it was a perfect day. The sun was out. People were enjoying their morning stroll. I had selected a pleasant spot. Then, unexpectedly, I turned to see my soon-to-be ex-wife walking toward me. She was smiling. She appeared quite stunning, undeniably dressed up with considerable care. Although she looked slightly worn out and stressed, no sympathy from me. She approached and attempted to embrace me. I extended my arm, signaling no. She glanced at me as if to say, I understand. We sat down and settled. She tried to initiate small talk, but I wasn't interested. I had my phone recording and began, when did you first kiss him? The first week on Friday. When did you first sleep with him? The same day on Friday. Where? At his place. Did you ever do it in my bed? Does it truly matter? I gazed at her and reminded her about the email, about answering everything. I firmly stated, yes. She began to shed tears. She essentially confessed it happened a number of times. Our neighbor had seen him but correctly assumed he was a coworker. They thought nothing of it. She apologized profusely and continued to apologize, but I raised my hand for her to stop. I posed my other inquiries. Did you tell him about me? About you being married? Yes, but at the time it was a blur. Now, my therapist had asked me to pose a specific question. This was it. When you first met Marges, how soon did he inquire about me? What do you mean? It's simple. When you conversed, what did he ask you about me? Did he want to know how long we were married? Were we content? And so on. After a pause, yes, he did ask about our marriage and if we were happy. Why? Didn't that strike you as peculiar? You met a man you barely know and he's asking personal questions about our marriage? No, I just thought he was being generally curious. I didn't perceive it as strange. More on the relevance of this question later. After asking a series of minor, impactful questions, I decided to move to the major ones. I chose to ask her about the videos and pictures. However, I did it in a casual manner. I referenced a racist incident near us at a local store. Of course, if you read my first narrative, you'll know about the views of Marges and his friend. So I approached it gently and phrased it like this. Did you hear about the incident last Thursday? What incident? The bigots who assaulted the shopkeeper and vandalized his store not before spray painting hateful graffiti everywhere. That's awful. Yep, it is. I can't stand racists, can you? She looked at me with a bewildered expression. I remained silent. Then she seemed to grasp exactly what I meant. She knew that I knew about the pictures and videos. She started to cry again. This lasted for approximately 5 minutes. I pressed, why would you even associate with men like that? She was red-faced from crying, struggling to compose herself. It's not what it appears to be, or what you imagine. What I imagine, what am I supposed to imagine? What was it about this man that would make you disrespect your grandfathers who fought in World War II, or abandon your friends and treat me as if I were worthless? At this point, she was trembling. She looked at me with tear-filled eyes but answered, he was the new manager in her department. He was outgoing and amusing. He made people feel good about themselves. Many women liked him. Even after he started, he had a certain charm. But when he began to show interest in me, I felt like he chose me. What on earth does that imply? You want honesty, and I need to be honest. When we started talking, he made it clear that he was only interested in me. I interrupted and said, after a couple of days, yes, that's what I'm saying. He had an immediate way of making someone feel happy, and even more. I felt wonderful when I saw him looking at me from across the office. I felt wonderful when he spoke to me saying, you're the only interesting person here. As I said, I felt he selected me. What? I know it's pathetic. I'm pathetic and weak, but you have to understand what it was like when he first started at the office. He was attractive, self-assured, sophisticated, and simply perfect. He possessed an aura about him that made me melt when he smiled. She continued, he could have had anyone at the office at that time. All the women constantly talked about him, and I know it sounds bad, but I never thought he would choose me. Wait, you wanted to be chosen? No, not initially. I figured it would be harmless flirtation or something. But he made it clear that he desired more than that, and that was it. What was it? Him, like a kind of drug I couldn't shake off. Again, I know it's pathetic, but give me a moment. When he spoke to me and offered compliments, I was stunned but truly flattered. My confidence soared from 60 to 10,000. I thought to myself, this man could have anyone, but he told me it was me he chose. Constantly, he emphasized that it was me. What was you? I don't grasp it. He made me feel that I was the one, that I was the one he was meant to be with. I know it's not what you wish to hear, but I'm being honest. Continue, I said. I cannot deny I was attracted to him. It was obvious, I see that now. Wait, you thought you were concealing it? At the time, yes. In the beginning, he showered me with compliments. Other women were envious of me. I got a thrill from it. I enjoyed it. The more I saw of him, the more I desired. I wanted to feel like royalty. I know you treated me so well. I was fortunate. But Marge's at that time was just on another level. I got a surge of excitement from seeing jealous women envying me. I had asked for honesty. She continued, in my view, I thought to myself, I'm so lucky to have this man. But the longer I was with him, the more he changed. Yet, I couldn't stop it. I asked her what she meant. He was precise in his desires. He got to know me, but unconditionally, he got me to do the opposite of what I liked. Those videos and pictures were his idea. And yes, I know his friends and their ideology, but I didn't want to challenge him or Marge's because I didn't want to upset him. He had a way of implying that if I couldn't make him happy, someone else would. He had this, do you know how fortunate you are attitude. At the time, I panicked. I went to extreme lengths to keep him happy. I wanted to make him happy, and nothing else mattered. So at that time, I did anything for him. You obviously observed that. I told her, of course I did. And about the fantasies. I know. But as I said, he was a substance I couldn't escape. The more I saw him, the more I craved. He made me believe that you were the antagonist. He made me believe that you were hindering my progress and that you didn't respect me. I know it's not true, she was in tears again. But that's why I did everything. Everything he told me to do. Even after he was criticizing you, I couldn't fight back because I was addicted. And that makes it acceptable. How you treated me? Abandoning dinner, abandoning camping? Seriously? No, I'm not asking for forgiveness. I don't deserve it because I understand how I treated you. I was cruel to you and I will never forgive myself. But I did it, abandoning dinner, etc. I knew I was hurting you, but I couldn't stop. He kept telling me that I deserved more than you and that I should be treated like a queen. So the more I went to high-class restaurants, VIP theater shows, and received fancy jewelry, the more I resented you. But each time he did it, He always brought up you and your perceived failures. So I obviously bought into it, and that's why I was cold towards you. I thought you had failed to me, and he hadn't. I know it's not true, but during that time, he was very influential, and I believed everything he said. She continued, it was only when I saw the documents and the ring that something finally clicked within me. I know you don't believe me, but I ended things with Marge's immediately. I know I don't deserve credit for it, but I genuinely am ashamed of what transpired. I can't imagine what it was like for you. I know I neglected you, made you feel worthless, but I couldn't see it before. I did, after I saw the papers. I'm ashamed that I chose this despicable man over you. I looked at her. I hadn't anticipated her answers, but she seemed truly sincere. I replied, though, aside from your affair, you know what the real issue is? That at the beginning, you desired the affair because you said he chose you. You said he was like a drug, but millions of people overcome addictions. They realize they have problems and seek assistance. You didn't. You continued. The only reason you're here is because I was your safety net, and now it's gone. There's no way a spouse can claim I love you when you make them feel inadequate. She asserted she didn't. No, you did. For 11 months, you made me feel worthless. As you know, I was losing weight, becoming more withdrawn, and losing myself. All the while, you were going out every night, frequenting the gym, purchasing new attire, becoming a different individual. You came home and looked at me with disdain. During that period, you didn't let me touch you or anything. You gave me nothing but abuse. Abuse, yes, you did abuse me mentally. Perhaps you didn't think you were doing it, but damn, you did it. My best friend and soulmate made me hate myself. She was in tears again. It became so severe that I was contemplating. I didn't say it, but you understand the implication. At this point, she was weeping heavily and apologizing so profusely that I forgot we were at the beachfront. People were observing, and I had to tell her to breathe. She regained her composure and continued pleading. It was him feeding her the toxic thoughts against me. I had one final question. Do you love him? No, I don't. I know you won't believe me, but I actually despise him as much as I despise myself. After a few hours of conversation, she left, reiterating that everything she said was true, that I was the love of her life, and so forth. I sat by the beach, pondering the possibility of her being groomed, conditioned, and so on. I mean, it made sense. After she met him, she changed, completely changed. There was a reason my therapist wanted me to ask that question. Although she couldn't formally diagnose Marge's, she believed he exhibited sociopathic tendencies, hence why he inquired about her marriage. She said it's clear that he had an agenda, asking about my marriage to my wife so early. The indicators are there. He did choose your wife. He knew that you were happily married and stable, so he had his challenge. The challenge was simply to disrupt and ruin lives, as sociopathic individuals do. Marge's would never have been with a single woman because there was no challenge. But with your wife, it wasn't just her he was controlling, but her friends and family as well. He molded her into everything your wife opposed and made sure she complied. He transformed you, through your wife, into a depressed loner. She continued, that is why you never confronted her after seeing the text and videos. You didn't have the evidence at all. That's what he and your wife did. He manipulated the circumstances, but your wife willingly played along. Sociopaths enjoy manipulating and controlling the narrative. When you followed your wife to the parking lot, he probably knew you would follow her. If you had confronted them there, most likely your wife would have taken his side then and there. Thus, he would have won. People who display sociopathic tendencies possess no empathy. They are driven by witnessing others suffer at their hands. Is there some truth to that? My wife, a victim of a sociopath? It fits, but a part of me doesn't care. Well, a part of me cares deeply at times. Who was this man? I kept telling myself I had never seen one individual arrive with such authority and devastate people's lives. But deep down, he was the complete package. He was a manager earning a respectable income. He was 30 but appeared 21, possessed a great physique, and exuded confidence that would make women notice him. But perhaps my soon-to-be ex-wife was correct, and she did end things with him that day I departed. Because after I left, my neighbor informed me that Marge's kept coming around to my house. demanding to speak to my soon-to-be ex. He apparently did this a number of times. As my wife mentioned when we met, he was acting like a physically abusive husband. My therapist said sociopaths cannot accept rejection, especially when they lack control. My wife ended their relationship, and he became erratic. Why? My therapist said it's simple. Your wife chose you over him. Lucky me, Vasem. He manipulated her for less than a year, and she still possessed the strength to terminate it. That undoubtedly derailed his scheme. Update: I contacted HR regarding my wife and him. It turns out other individuals had also contacted HR. It seems that news of the affair was spreading. He left shortly after my wife and I spoke. I don't know where, I don't care. My wife also departed before she was forced out. Apparently, people were not too pleased with her and her conduct, especially of her parents. She is currently residing with her parents and relocating. She is, however, receiving help from a psychologist, which she definitely requires. I still communicate with her family and our shared friends. They attempt to suggest that I should meet my soon-to-be ex-wife again, but that is not happening. She needs to concentrate on herself, on improving, and her family confirmed that Marge's had a profound negative impact on her. The divorce will be finalized in a few weeks. I know some people said she wouldn't sign after the meeting, but I had to go. I had to understand why she did it. I had to know. Do I feel better? In a way, yes. My wife was as honest as she could be, I believe. The pattern of the affair now makes sense. My soon-to-be ex-wife asked if there was a chance of reconciliation eventually. I have to admit I considered it. Even if she is a victim of a master manipulator, how can I trust her? If I took her back, all I would be thinking about is him and how I cannot measure up compared to him. I would feel perpetually second best, no matter what she assures me. She insists that it's not the case, that I have always been her soulmate. Even after she said it, my life with her wouldn't be the same. I suppose the moral of the story is that infidelity is obviously wrong. It affects and damages the partners more so. Cheaters are truly self-centered. They only admit fault if they're caught or if divorce papers are left on the kitchen counter. I certainly won't marry again. The damage from the affair has wounded me deeply. I still feel inadequate about myself, that I'm not good enough, although I have been returning to the room, hiking, and camping with friends. I've been striving to stay active, trying to move forward. But I hate this. I truly hate my soon-to-be ex-wife for easily falling for him and him choosing my wife. Why did it have to be her? I kept asking myself. But these questions I pose to myself are futile because it's done now. The damage has been inflicted, and it still hurts. I still have my employment, and moving to the outskirts of town is beneficial. I'm not one of those individuals who relocate thousands of miles away, although I understand the impulse. But my work and social circle have been good to me, and I don't want to lose them. If I relocated completely, then I feel they would have won, and I refuse to be a victim. My therapist said that it will require time to heal. Just be patient. Well, that's it. There isn't much more to update, so this will probably be my final post. I want to thank everyone who posted on the last blog. I took all your comments on board and fully appreciate them. Time for some concluding thoughts. Salvador M1 starts us off. You, sir, are the ultimate alpha. The way you managed the situation was simply flawless. Also, what an incredible therapist you have. Keep her and continue healing. I'm certain you will. Cranach concludes our segment. While I believe that her manipulation and conditioning played a part in what she did, it still doesn't change that she consciously decided to cheat on you, right from that first Friday with him. At that specific time, she wasn't manipulated or conditioned. Those things require time, even more so as she had been a loving and caring wife before. No, she desired this to happen and made a choice not to end things with you, but to cheat on you early on. She made the decision that this man was more important to her than you were, which ultimately set her up to be conditioned by him. That he was even able to condition her was solely based on her own choice because she wanted him. The humiliation and abuse you experienced afterwards from her might have stemmed from her being manipulated, but the initial decision to cheat on you only occurred because she made a conscious choice to do so. I commend you for being able to meet with her and even to listen to everything she said. I don't think many could have done that. Adhere to your decision. Divorce her, and after that, never see her again. If there was ever a case where the damage inflicted was simply too extensive to be repaired, then it is here. Take your time, focus on your recovery, and be proud of yourself for extricating yourself from that abuse. That is what I want you to take away from all of this for yourself. In a period of profound anguish, when the person you cherished most profoundly betrayed you, you stood up for yourself and did what was necessary to escape that situation. And in your case, you even did it with your dignity intact. You are worth so much more than to be treated in such a manner.